I'm 37 years old, and for the last 20 years, my dream has been to start a successful business that I run for the long term. And I failed. I spent 20 years being a quitter. Every time things got hard, every time I started to have doubts, every time I heard no, every time someone told me my idea wasn't good, the market was too difficult, I'd lose faith. And I'd start thinking that business wasn't the right one for me. Clearly, I wasn't a good fit for that particular type of business, but there was some business out there that would be the right fit, that wouldn't be hard, that would come easily. And so when things got hard, I would inevitably get shiny object syndrome. I'd start thinking, well, this business isn't right for me. I'm feeling bored by the niche, or I don't have the right skills to make it successful. There's got to be a business out there that's a better fit for me, that's just going to feel a whole lot easier. And I read about shiny object syndrome over the last 20 years. It's not like this is a new concept to me. On paper, I understood that it wasn't a good idea to switch ideas every time things got hard, but I was really good at convincing myself that my shiny object syndrome had a deeper reason behind it, that the business wasn't a good fit for me existentially. That, I wouldn't even want to run that kind of business for 10 or 20 years, even if I knew it was going to be successful. I wasn't passionate about the niche, or I was bored by it, or it involved too many things that weren't fun. It wasn't a good fit for my personality. And I think until very recently, the core thing that kept me stuck in the pattern of quitting was this belief that there was a mythical business out there that would be the perfect fit for me, that would feel easy, that would be successful really quickly, where almost every task involved in running that business would feel fun and aligned with who I am, that wouldn't require me to go far outside of my comfort zone, and it would just kind of feel like that was the business that I was meant to run and I was made for it. So I guess what shifted recently to make me realize that that was kind of an impossible dream, I think firstly just the number of businesses that I started and then quit started to become overwhelming. Over the years, I've started blogs, website, e-commerce businesses, even a plant nursery, various SaaS products, information products, subscriptions, job boards. There are so many that I don't even remember them all. And I think I've probably spent over $100,000 on these various businesses throughout the course of my lifetime. And let me tell you, none of them have earned that much. In fact, taken together, none of them would have earned anything close to that. When you see a pattern playing out again and again and again, and you're always getting the same results, you start to question the pattern and whether the thing you're looking for actually exists. I've also been on a journey over the last couple of years of exploring ADHD and the fact that I have a lot of ADHD symptoms. I've been working with an ADHD coach over the last couple of years. One thing that kind of came out of that recently is that I really struggle with discomfort. I really struggle with uncertainty, going outside of my comfort zone, doing things that I feel like I suck at. I kind of want things to be easy. I take in discomfort as a sign to quit, rather than a sign that I'm actually getting to the part where people usually quit, and it's the ones who continue anyway who are possibly going to be successful. Through that process, I realized the only thing that's going to allow me to be successful in business in the way that I want to be is developing that ability to tolerate discomfort. One of my biggest fears, for example, was devoting a lot of time, maybe a few years, to something that didn't work out, that didn't go anywhere. Fear around wasting my life, when ironically, it meant that I spent 20 years on a bunch of different things that didn't amount to that much. I think if I had stuck with any one of those ideas and really given it my full effort, I would be way further than I am now. So now that I've had this realization, what am I doing about it? Well, the first thing is I can't be a quitter anymore. I have to become someone who's not a quitter. I keep wanting to say, I want that to be, or I need that to be my new identity. But I think, I'm reading Atomic Habits by James Clear at the moment. And one of the sections he talks about your identity comes before your habits a lot of the time. And if you can shift your identity, it makes it a lot easier for you to do things that are consistent with that identity. He gives this example where someone who's a smoker is trying to give up smoking. In one scenario, someone offers them a cigarette and they say, I'm trying to quit. In another scenario, someone offers them a cigarette and they say, I'm not a smoker. The argument being that it's going to be a lot easier for the person who really identifies as, I'm not a smoker anymore, to give up that habit. My current business, I'm not going to give up no matter what. I'm confident enough that it's like a decent idea. I'm confident enough that there is somewhat of a market. I'm confident enough that the founder market fit is reasonably okay. I think the only factor that will determine whether it's successful or not is going to be me and whether I keep going with it. And so I'm prepared to work on it for years and get nothing in return and just keep grinding, because I mean, hey, I've never done that before. So who cares if I do that, right? Like, who cares if I work on something for 7 years and it doesn't pan out? I've had my chapter of being ridiculously easy to dissuade from working on a business. I can have my chapter of being that person who doesn't know when to quit, where their friends are like, why are you still doing this? You know, I want to be that person. Obviously, I hope the business is successful, but I think like at a deep level, I'm prepared for it not to be for a long time. I think I've just realized that that promise of a business that feels easy is fool's gold. I don't know if I'm going to succeed in my goal. You know, I mean, I could fail again. I could quit again. So yeah, this is my story of how I overcame 20 years of quitting to become someone who doesn't know when to quit. The business that I'm building and I'm committed to is a SaaS for content-driven B2B marketing teams to understand the influence of content on revenue. I'm working on building the MVP. Earlier in the year, I actually started working on this idea and I spoke to over 50 people who were working in marketing to find out if they had this problem. Eventually, I started to realize that it was particularly felt by marketing teams that relied a lot on content teams, brand teams, demand gen teams that use a lot of content assets as part of their campaigns. Yeah, some really strong validation. People saying that they would pay for something like this if I could build it. So just briefly, I'm going to show you what I'm building at the moment and kind of the major pieces that I need to get in place before the MVP is ready. So the first piece is an analytics script. The purpose of that is to send events every time a user on the website loads a new page. Through that, you can capture things like where did the lead come from? What was their user journey? If I can link that data with deal data in the CRM, then you can start to get some of that revenue influence data that I think is going to make this really valuable for marketers. So the script will need to send events to, I'm thinking of using Tinybird. When I worked on this project last, I used ClickHouse, but it was really expensive, especially for like how much data I was putting into it, which was not very much. So I think Tinybird can be a bit better for smaller projects like this one. So I'm going to give that a go. Then we have a UI that's going to be essentially like a reporting interface for Tinybird. That's going to be the backstory app. This is going to be what users actually interact with. And then the next piece is going to be integrations with various CRMs. The one that I'm going to start with is Pipedrive. The reason I'm starting with Pipedrive is because Pipedrive has like no marketing analytics at all. I know this because we use Pipedrive at my current client, and like it's a good sales CRM, but from a marketing perspective, it's pretty crap. And so I think that this can really fill the gap in terms of connecting marketing, analytics, and Pipedrive together to actually get some really good marketing insights about the leads and deals that are coming through. How I actually do the integration, I'm not sure about that, but I am confident that it's going to be possible, but I haven't got there yet. What I'm working on at the moment is the analytics script. Analytics is a sensitive topic. I think from the start, I really want it to be privacy centric as much as possible, give people really good tools for consent, no cookies, not even first party cookies, like build it with GDPR compliance in mind from the beginning. I think there's no future for analytics apps that don't take a privacy first approach in 2025. I'm using a pretty simple set of tools for project management and development of the product. I'm using Obsidian for like knowledge management, note taking, SOPs, that sort of thing. A lot of people use Notion. I don't like Notion. I think Notion's like a little bit bloated. I really like Obsidian. It's just so simple. I've only used Obsidian for just me, and it's possible that like if at some point I bring other people into the team, it's going to be hard to collaborate with Obsidian. But I think it's doable. I just like looking at it. I like working in it. It feels nice. It makes sense to me. So kind of using this as like the brain of the project. For task management, I'm using linear. So I try to divide up cards into like the smallest atomic unit of work that has some value either for me as the developer or for the user. Small because I like dopamine. And it's nice to just get a little trickle of dopamine hits of completing things throughout the day. I think also making cards small helps to avoid hidden complexity. I also use projects, and I'm using them sort of purely to enforce some scope on the MVP. So before I start work, I will kind of encapsulate all the major features of the MVP as projects. And every time I create an issue, it needs to relate to a project that I defined up front, or I kind of know that that's out of scope. I'm using Cursor for development, pretty standard these days. I'm not full vibe coding. I've made mistakes with LLMs in the past where I've given them too much leeway to implement features, write whole tests, and then I find often that like it becomes really hard to reason about the code that the LLM's written when I haven't been deeply involved in writing it line by line. Almost always kind of like go fast in the short term and then get bogged down later on. So I'm trying to find a happy medium where, you know, I'm really driving the architecture and the code decisions and the design, and I'm using the LLM to help me in small chunks. Getting it to work in small chunks is often hard. If anyone has any tips on how to work better with LLMs, or how they've found kind of a happy medium where they still feel like they understand the code and they're like enhanced by the LLM rather than just letting the LLM do everything and then getting annoyed and confused, let me know. So this has really just been intended as a bit of an intro to what I'm working on, my backstory, my history of being a quitter and how I'm trying to overcome that, how I'm approaching the project of building the MVP. In the next video, I'm going to talk a little bit about how I'm thinking about marketing for backstory, especially content marketing. That's something that I want to really invest in heavily from the beginning, but also in a time efficient way. There's only one of me. I have to do the development and all the other bits and pieces that go into creating a business. So I need to create content in the most efficient way possible and then reuse it as much as I possibly can. So I have some interesting ideas that I want to try around that I'll share with you in the next video, in case they're useful and maybe you want to try them as well. Thanks for watching, and since I'm not a quitter anymore, there will be another video soon. Bye for now.